Welcome to Planning for the Future, the podcast.
We're sitting here with Bill Otto. He is the president of Beacon Hill Financial out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Hello, Brendan. How are you today?
I am good. So it is a different world out there right now, and a lot of people are out there and they're worried about their financial future, which in essence, they shouldn't if they have someone like you that is going to help guide them through it.
Yes, Brendan. What we have found are many of our clients have been fortunate through the latest downturn, because when we help people manage and invest their money, we begin with what is called a risk analysis. And the risk analysis reflects our clients' ability to take volatility or risk into the market. So, for example, we break our portfolios into three buckets or three areas. One is the short term, of where we have a very conservative investment. The medium term is more dividend and interest oriented. And then the long term is for growth. And a lot of our folks are already retired, so they're a little bit more on the conservative side. So when the market was down 15, 20% and we were having meetings with our clients, many of them are only down a couple of percentages or up to 5%. Now, we had some folks that were higher, but they were more growth oriented and their portfolios reflected that. It wasn't uncommon for me to call someone where their portfolio was only down a couple percent because they're conservative in nature. Therefore, their portfolio reflects their conservative nature, and they weren't all that invested in the long-term growth or the growth stocks. So we fared pretty well through this latest downturn in the market.
And that's because people have planned. And planning ahead is what this is all about. Planning for your future, planning for that long-term care. Because there's certain things you can't plan for, like a heart attack or a stroke or Alzheimer's.
Absolutely. And that's what we've been doing for 20 years now, is helping people preserve their assets from long-term care, more specifically nursing homes, where we put together planning ideas and techniques where we can protect, in some instances, up to 50%, even though these folks are in a nursing home. So it's all about asset protection, may it be the growth or the stock market when it declines, or God forbid, when someone has to go to a nursing home, we have techniques that protect the people's assets.
And that's all about gaining that peace of mind with that planning ahead.
Absolutely. And we also provide all our clients with a written financial plan. Like I like to tell them, I like to make this as scientific as possible. You can't do that, but we try our best, where we combine someone's risk analysis and how their money is invested based upon their written financial plan, where in the case of, let's say, income, we create portfolios and investments that provide income for their immediate needs as well as their future needs, so that more growth to help offset inflation. So it's a team approach where we work with our clients, our clients' risk tolerances to match it up. So when we sit down and we have to maybe make a change because an investment isn't doing as well as we wanted it to be, or there is a downturn in the market, because we have a written financial plan, we're more proactive. We see it a lot sooner than if we didn't have a financial plan or the risk analysis.
That's a great point. So when somebody comes into you for the first time and is looking to start their planning, what's the process?
Well, first of all, we get to know them. We get to know their assets, what their income is now. We do, through our financial plan, we do an expense plan where how much money they need to live on. It's broken into a couple of different categories. One is the fixed expenses. These are the ones that keep the lights on, the television, cable running, insurance, house payments, things like that. They gotta have expenses. And then once we figure that out, we add on top of that what we call discretionary expenses. That may be a trip to see the grandbabies in Missouri. It may be a trip to Italy. It may be buying a motorhome or a camper to go camping or exploring these wonderful United States. So then we add that onto the discretionary onto the fixed income. And then we have pretty much how much we think we'll need for the month. We go by month to month. And then we create the investments to help provide extra income. Now, we first look at, say, Social Security and what you call a defined benefit plan or a pension. And we add those two together to see how much of this discretionary and fixed expenses, how much of that pot it will fill. And then what additional income that we will need, we provide through the investments to make sure that they have money coming in each month. Because what we have found is the retirees that have the fixed income coming in each month to match their expenses, they have a lot happier retirement than if they were taking so much out a month. It was an unknown. The folks that get the paycheck each month to provide for their expenses have a happier retirement. And there's been studies to provide this, that they have a happier retirement than had they not planned.
That's great news. And like you said, just getting that set up. So, say you do want to do something fun, like take that trip to Italy or take that cruise around the world or whatever it might be. There's a way that you can plan for that and still be able to plan for your future. Say, like nursing home expenses are anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 a month, depending on where you're going, right?
Yeah, here in Cincinnati, we usually see 10, and believe it or not, it's creeping up to $12,000 a month in some of the higher end nursing homes. So once we set up their monthly expense plans for their retirement, then we look at long-term care. Then we look at filling that bucket up, if you will, for long-term care to provide them income and assets to help pay for the long-term care should the need arise. And as we speak about this, and I'm guilty as everybody else is that when I think of long-term care, I immediately jump over home health care, independent living, assisted living, and I jump right into the nursing homes, as I had alluded to before here in Cincinnati. It can be $10,000 to $12,000 a month. But 80% of the expenses that are paid for long-term care actually happen in the home. And that's where we look at our clients' assets and find the best way to leverage their money so that they can stay at home. If you ask 100 people, where would you like to receive your long-term care? 80 to 90 of those 100 people will say, I want it at home. And I would be one of those folks as well. The other folks that say, well, I would go to assisted living, independent living, are folks that may not have a family here. They're all alone here, and there's no one to take care of them at home. So we plan for long-term care because, believe it or not, Ohio did a study not so long ago, or the insurance commissioners, where they said 70% of the folks over 65 years old will need some kind of long-term care. So it's not a popular subject. People don't come running into the office saying, I want a long-term care policy or I want to put money aside for long-term care. But it's prudent to do this because also, a lot of folks that we have helped in the past have qualified for Medicaid. And now Medicaid allows people, after they have spent down all their assets, and there's some planning we help people with to preserve some of these. But with Medicare, in the past, it's always been pretty easy to get a room or a facility once you've depleted your assets to accept you. We are finding that, believe it or not, Brendan, harder and harder because the money's not there for these long-term care facilities with the funding that Medicaid allows. They look more at rehabilitative care, where if you fall and break your hip and they rehabilitate you, now that you'll see that more than $12,000 a month. But that's what we're seeing a lot of these long-term care facilities. I always jokingly say to clients, or when I'm at a speaking engagements, which we do quite often, is that when I was growing up, we always noticed these neighborhoods, these new neighborhoods where there'd be more children moving into the neighborhood. They're building more homes, and we could have more friends to play baseball and football when we were young. Now, if you kind of look around, what are you seeing? You're seeing these continuing care communities popping up everywhere. In the area of town that I live on the east side of Cincinnati, there was 3 or 4 that just built in the last 2 years, because every day someone turns 65 and retires. Now, that's something we retirement planners look at, but that's been occurring for 10 years now. So now these 65-year-olds are turning 75, and they can't get around as well as they used to. So what we find happen is they're moving into these continuing care communities. And I don't know if you've been to a few of these or not, Brendan. We've have client visits at these, and man, some of these are pretty nice. I remember going out to a facility. They had an ice cream parlor. They had a movie theater. They even had a bar for happy hour.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, these are pretty nice, but you can't get in there on Medicaid because it costs too much for these nice facilities. You may, if you don't plan properly, and God forbid you end up in a facility, if you're going to rely on Medicaid, you won't get into some of these nicer facilities.
Yeah. You don't really have a choice when it comes to Medicaid, right? I mean, you could be 2 hours away from loved ones. Like say if your kids live within 10 minutes of you and there's a nice facility within 15 minutes of you, but because you're on Medicaid, you might get sent wherever there's an open bed, right?
Exactly. And it may not be the best facility in the county. As when we speak with folks about planning, I always say location, location, location for the nursing home or assisted living, because in the winter months when it's icy and it's snowing out, you don't want to make, as you were alluding to, a half hour, 45-minute drive to their side of the county to visit your loved one. You want to be 5, 10, 15 minutes away.
Right. And one of the things you talked about too is the assisted living in the home. A lot of people want to be in their home, and times have changed as that has gone too. It used to be like when I was growing up, the grandparents would come back and live with the family. Well, now that's not always an option. Sometimes the family is across the country. Sometimes the family is 2 states away. So you need to have, let them stay in their home where they're comfortable and have that home assisted care coming in as well, right?
You're so right. In 1956, when they created the interstate system, well, before 1956, as you were mentioned, Brendan, the family lived all in one building many times, and the parent or the children or the grandchildren would come down and take care of grandma and grandpa. Well, when they created the interstate system, the young children start driving away to school, say on the West Coast, East Coast, Florida, and many times they didn't come home because they found the love of their life far, far away, and this left grandma and grandpa or mother or father back here in Ohio by themselves. And when they needed help, now they couldn't depend upon their children because they were moved away. So they hired help. And it's becoming more and more prevalent to have people come into your house. Now, there are some instances like my 98-year-old mother who doesn't like anybody in her house, and we have to give her a little attitude adjustment about helping her. But for the most part, it's a regularly accepted need in today's world.
Absolutely. And it's, when it was long-term care, what we used to think of is almost like car insurance. It was like, well, you either use it or you lose it. And the way it has changed now and how everything has evolved, it's not that use it or lose it. It's a true investment. and you can make adjustments